Triumph out of tragedy. We're basing our thoughts today on 1 Samuel chapter 30, and I will be reading from the New International Version. You may like to have 1 Samuel chapter 30 open in front of you. First of all, some background. We come to a remarkable and true story. We have a depressed and jealous king, a handsome and brave fighter who is on the run. There is deep loyalty and love, deception, beautiful women, slaughter, rape, betrayal, and intrigue. Every good story has the hero brought to the brink of destruction. This is better than any film. At one point, the main character is lowered out of a bedroom window by his wife to escape, while soldiers wait nearby to arrest him. The life of David features in no less than 66 chapters of the Bible, and there are 59 references to him in the New Testament. Indeed, half the Psalms are attributed to him. We would do well to pay attention to perhaps the greatest person in the history of Israel. Now, we recently drew inspiration from Psalm 27 by David. He was being hunted down by King Saul as a fugitive, yet he was confident in God. Most of David's Psalms were written out of his ups and downs, and today we look at the lowest point in his life, when he is most desperate. Saul was jealous of David's success and standing with the people. He wanted him dead. David had fled as a refugee to the adjacent nation of the Philistines, Israel's arch enemy. There he ran a protection racket by destroying mutual enemies of both Israel and the Philistines. He cunningly gained a good reputation with the king of the Philistines. With his 600 men, he was marching out with them to attack Israel. However, the Philistine commanders didn't trust him and sent him home. I will now continue the story by reading the first few verses of 1 Samuel 30. David and his men reached Ziklag, that was their home, on the third day. Now the Amalekites had raided the Negev and Ziklag. They had attacked it and burned it, and had taken captive the women and everyone else in it, both young and old. They killed none of them, but carried them off as they went on their way. When David and his men reached Ziklag, they found it destroyed by fire, and their wives and sons and daughters taken captive. So David and his men wept aloud until they had no strength left to weep. David's 2 wives had been captured, Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. David was greatly distressed because the men were talking of stoning him. Each one was bitter in his spirit because of his sons and daughters. But David found strength in the Lord his God. Then David said to Abiathar the priest, the son of Ahimelech, "Bring me the ephod." Abiathar brought it to him, and David inquired of the Lord, "Shall I pursue this raiding party? Will I overtake them?" "Pursue them," he answered. "You will certainly overtake them and succeed in the rescue." David and the 600 men with him came to the Besor Valley, where some stayed behind. 200 of them were too exhausted to cross the valley, but David and the other 400 continued the pursuit. This gripping story continues like a thriller. David's men find a sick slave abandoned by the Amalekites, who eventually leads them to the raiders. David and his men immediately attack, and the battle rages all night and until evening of the next day, securing an overwhelming victory. All the captives are recovered, along with a large amount of plunder. David ensures that everyone receives a share, including those too exhausted to get to the battle. He even sends gifts to 20 or more settlements in southern Israel. Now, in summary, we may divide this story into 4 sections. We begin with rejection, moving on to ruin, then renewal and restoration. So let's look at these each in turn. David and his men were profoundly frustrated at their rejection by the Philistine commanders. They were spoiling for a fight, and good at fighting at that. Note the unseen hand of God preventing the terrible prospect of David slaughtering his own people. It takes 3 days for David to reach home, in addition to all the marching with the Philistine troops. There they find total ruin, having lost everything at Ziklag, their home. Further exhaustion ensues as everyone weeps until they have no energy to weep anymore. They are bitter at the loss of their families and turn on David, threatening to stone him. Ruined indeed. The pivotal point comes in verse 6. David was greatly distressed. He is in a tight fix. He's a refugee. He's rejected by his home country, his host country. Now he's rejected by his men, and everyone is exhausted. They have lost everything. Where is God in the darkest moment? Let me ask you a question. What do you do when you're in a fix? Maybe when you have done all the right things and life conspires to kick you in the gut. Do you look for comfort in the wrong places? Do you feel sorry for yourself? Do you take out your frustrations on those close to you? Renewal. David found strength in the Lord his God. When he was at his lowest, he knew where to turn. By contrast, when Saul was in a fix, he consults a medium and receives a death sentence. So how did David strengthen himself in God? Maybe he talked to himself. Why are you downcast? Put your hope in God. Have you ever heard a Wimbledon tennis player under pressure shouting to himself, "Come on, go to it"? There is good biblical precedent for speaking to your soul. Praise the Lord, O my soul, says one of the Psalms. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. David certainly talked to God. Please, Lord, rescue me. Come quickly, Lord, and help me. The Lord is my shepherd. He renews my strength. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, my deliverer. You are my stronghold. We find all these statements in the Psalms that David wrote. He knew how to find renewal in the face of rejection and ruin. Previously, we noted that David routinely consulted God for direction. He does the same here, and God gives much reassurance. Did you notice the reply from God? You will certainly overtake them and succeed in the rescue. Question: where is God when you need him most? Answer: right by your side. There is more. Whilst David was at his lowest point, King Saul was tragically losing his life in the battle. After 13 years, David was completing God's training school for a king. The way opens up for him to be crowned king and fulfill his God-given destiny. So let's look at the application of this magnificent story. We see the unseen hand of God in this roller coaster. We should trust God as David did when circumstances are beyond our control. In our darkest moments, God is still right by our side. He wants us to draw strength from him as David did. This is easier if we habitually lean on him daily. God uses the ups and downs of life to shape us and equip us for the destiny he has for us, as he did for David. So let's conclude with a short prayer. Lord, you are the same today as you were for David. Help us to trust you when everything seems out of control. Help us to draw strength from you when we are down. Thank you that you can use the worst of circumstances to achieve your beautiful plans. We choose to trust you. Amen.